What's going on, guys? K-Pine here, and welcome back. And welcome to Season 24 of the Go Battle League, where in this video, I'll be featuring 3 newly buffed Pokemon, an Empoleon with Metal Sound, Shadow Kingdra with Dragon Breath and Swift, and Altaria with Dragon Breath, Sky Attack, and Flamethrower. I'm sure we all know by now how strong Empoleon is, with it being everywhere the past few days. Altaria back from the graveyard, it's insanely good too, especially with the Dragon Breath and Sky Attack reworks, which makes Dragon Breath a Psywave clone and Sky Attack deal less damage, but it's now cheaper. That's an overall win, as Altaria has a great typing and fantastic stats, but its pacing is what previously kept it out of the meta. No longer. Plus, the Flamethrower edition is great coverage for steel types. And Shadow Kingdra. I haven't seen a lot of this around yet, but boy is it good. Straight 9 Dragon Breaths to Swift and faster pacing to Outrage, it's dangerous. Of which personally, I've been loving it on the save swap with the pressure it provides, but I'm sure it's a great closer too. For the team, I did go 50 and 25 over the 3 days I used it for, a 67% win percentage, which I'd say is pretty good, so there's definitely some climbing viability with the team later on in the season. Where in this video, I'll be featuring 2 nice 4-1 sets that I had with the team. And with that, let's get right into the battles. All right, getting to the first battle, we lead Empoleon into Shadow Kanto Marowak. Terrible lead for us. We are going to save swap into that Kingdra. My opponent brings in their own Empoleon to counter this. Now you may think this is a lose-lose situation, you know, hard countered on the lead, hard countered on the swap with the Empoleon. But this is where Shadow Kingdra is super deadly. You win the zeros here, especially with that little bit of energy advantage. Or not even win the zeros, but you at least get the force, shield, or switch advantage because you full send that outrage. And if my opponent's behind on energy like they are here, you reach the Swift to outpace. And if you full send that outrage and it lands, then you can just shield your opponent's move and then Dragon Breath them down. Like, Shadow Kingdra is so good because even in something where it seems like, you know, you're just hard countered and, you know, your opponent's just going to win switch there. Nah, Shadow Kingdra sets you up. Now we get switch advantage. We're able to put our Altaria onto that Shadow Kigwhack. They have a Credillia in the back. We have our Empoleon on it, and just flipping switch there, absolutely crucial. And we will be able to take this game as a result. Now, if you save swap into your Shadow Kingdra against their Shadow Kanto Marowak lead and they stay in, throw your Swift before they reach the Bone Club. That way you get to deal some nice damage or force a shield, and at the very least you misalign the switch clock. If it's a non-Shadow Kanto Marowak, you're just going to want to stay in and overfarm and tank their Bone Club, and that way if they Bone Club then dip, you have a lot of extra energy to expend against whatever they come in with. And if they don't swap out and they just Bone Club, now you have all this energy and you could threaten with a potential outrage full send or bait. But here we saved both of our shields for the Altaria, knowing that with how low the Credillia was, that Altaria would be able to comfortably close out here, as it does reaches the final Sky Attack to KO the Kanto Marowak and then Dragon Breath down the Credillia. GG's. Next battle, Empoleon into Shadow Dragonite Lead. This one you always want to overfarm in because you're pacing the exact same to your moves here. So like 10 turns to the Hydro Cannon and Drill Peck, and for the Dragonite it's 10 turns to that Thunder Punch or Superpower. So that way if your opponent throws on alignment, you're now going to be able to shield that and reach 2 moves, like as you see here, where my opponent throw an alignment and reach 2 moves to outpace them to your second move before they reach their second move. That way you're able to force switch advantage here, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to shield up the second move and then fire off the Drill Peck here. Honestly, I probably should have gone for the Hydro to account for a catch, just to be a little bit safer, because a Hydro would have killed regardless. And now in comes a Venusaur. They cannot Vine Whip us down until we reach another move. So we reach the Drill Peck, they catch it onto a Lickitung, and that's perfectly fine because even with all that energy stored, there's nothing that Venusaur can do against my Altaria. They can just fire off the sludges, but Altaria is bulky. We'll be able to handle it no problem and get to the Sky Attack to KO. But Shadow Kingdra here, shields are down. Man, that outrage hits hard and does a ton of damage. Very nice counting by my opponent, firing off the Frenzy Plant before I reach the Swift, but it does not matter as I do have the Altaria here to close it out. Now in that Shadow Dragonite lead, if your opponent does not throw on alignment, they're throwing on good timing, still play out the 2 shields, but in the 3rd shield scenario, catch that Thunder Punch on, you know, either your Altaria or your Kingdra, whatever you're feeling like there, just so you can save the Apollyon with a move stored to use in the end game. Your Shadow Scizor lead, they don't even build up to a Trailblaze, so we're very comfortable letting this go and firing off the Hydro Cannon here, where we're just going to stay in and go for another Hydro Cannon. I overfarm, expecting them to try and play to the CMP tie, but I want to maximize my energy just in case my opponent does leave the next move go. Let the next move go. So I'm going to fire off the Hydro here, which will take out my opponent unless they give their final shield, which they do. So I'm going to save that move for later, just like how we do in the Dragonite lead. Catch it onto my Shadow Kingdra, and if my opponent stays in, I'm going to reach this Swift before they reach another Night Slash. So we get to take it out as well as have all the energy on our Empoleon. Yeah, we take a lot of damage in the process, but that energy on Empoleon is going to be very nice later, especially with this Blastoise coming in. They try to get a full whirl out down. Shadow Kingdra says no, reaches the Outrage. This will KO the almost full health Blastoise. They have a Quagsire in the back. We swap an Altaria, and that's just a game over there. Another note for the Shadow Scizor lead, even if they build up to the Trailblaze there, you're still going to want to let it go because you can survive it and reach 2 Hydro Cannons before getting farmed down, where if your opponent shields both Hydro Cannons, then you're just going to pivot into that Shadow Kingdra. Next battle, Annihilape Lead, we pivot into Kingdra, they bring in a Steelix, and oh, this is a very bad situation to be in because unlike that Empoleon counter swap, we cannot force switch or shield advantage here against the Steelix. Outrage does a lot of damage, but man, they're just going to Dragon Tail us down. We're forced to settle for a Swift, which doesn't feel good as well, but at least we did bait this out, so Altaria doesn't have to see it. Coming in Empoleon, yeah, there's no way we're getting a Metal Sound down here, so we're just going to have to tank this energy and go for a Hydro. I honestly shield it. You know, I was like, you know, maybe they're running Earthquake and I don't want to get one shot, but no, they're on Psychic Sphinx Crunch. I get baited. Feels bad. But either way, like, Empoleon's just kind of toastier. So we do reach the Hydro, take out the Steelix, pivot into our Altaria, and they come in with a Wigglytuff. And well, this is just kind of a hard counter team. Like, there's nothing I could really do here. I do stay in and play it out just because I want to see the damage calculations here. So wanting to see that with the Sky Attack rework, if 2 of those would KO Wiggly, does not look like it does. And with that, I do end up conceding. GG's. Next battle, Bastiodon Lead. Very nice to see this on the lead because obviously it would destroy this back line, and Empoleon does very well into it. Now they get us some energy on the Bastiodon, then try and tank it on a Corviknight. So I'm just going to store 2 Hydros, then pivot into Altaria. This is another reason why I'm running Flamethrower on Altaria, is not just for the Empoleon matchup, but for the Corviknight matchup as well. Because we can take 2 paybacks perfectly fine and not worry about getting Sand Attack down since they are double resisted here. So my opponent lets that Flamethrower go, and with that Flamethrower being let go, I can just easily go for a Sky Attack here, take out the Corviknight. And in tanking both those paybacks, it's very nice because the Bastiodon gets very little farm now, and I still have all that energy on my Empoleon. Coming Empoleon, 1 more Metal Sound, and then the Hydro Cannon for good timing, since it is a 2-turn move user versus a 3-turn move user. And if they're staying in and expending energy here, then I do know that I want to preserve my Empoleon for that Basti, and it's a good thing I did because they have a Gastrodon. So I'm just going to let this Body Slam go since I know it's only a Body Slam. And knowing that it's only a Body Slam, I will be able to survive and reach 2 moves. If they built up to the potential Earth Power, I would respect it. But a lot of Gastrodon are starting to change to Body Slam, Water Pulse because of the Water Pulse buff. Either way, we do get damage and then the final shield, which with all this energy stored on the Empoleon, we will be able to take out the Gastro without taking any more Mudslap damage. That's the crucial point of it. In comes Bastiodon, and this should just be game from here. Just always making sure to throw on good timing after 1, 4, 7, or 10 iterations of your fast move. Yeah, like we're not in Flamethrower range either, which is nice. So that point with that Hydro landing, opponent barely hangs on, but the shield still remain on my side. the opponent does concede. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Talonflame Lead. Now you're gonna see me save swap to my Kingdra immediately here, which is nice because, you know, we did bait out a Shadow Alola Ninetales. I don't recommend playing it this way though. If it's a regular Talonflame, I say just stay in, play out the 2 shields, since you won't get farmed out with the Incinerates and you'll be able to take switch advantage and play it out how you want. But if it's the Shadow Talonflame, they will actually incinerate you down in the 2 shield scenario. So just play out the ones. Play out the ones, and then once you get that second shield from your opponent, with your second Hydro Cannon, pivot into your Shadow Kingdra. That way you bait out anything Altaria doesn't want to see, and if they end up staying in, you'll outpace to that Swift before they reach 2 moves against your Kingdra, while you're also keeping your Empoleon, well, decently healthy. I think you're right outside of the red, so you're still in the yellow. That's all that really matters in staying healthy enough. Now in comes Lantern, and honestly, I came in my Empoleon like, oh, my Empoleon's useless, like, as I'm kind of just gonna sack it here, and that was just not the right play. Should have come with Altaria, because look at these Dragon Breaths are adding up. I'm not taking super effective from the Sparks. Actually, at the time, I thought they were on Water Gun too, so I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine coming to Empoleon. They ended up being on Spark, and that kind of just sealed my fate there. I tried to get the farm down. The Lantern survived just barely, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin with that Lantern survival. Wouldn't have won this anyways, but realistically, I just needed to come in Altaria right away there instead of the Empoleon first. But GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Empoleon into Corviknight. Pretty neutral lead here, just because these Hydro Cannons do 2-shot the Corviknight, so you are able to win the 0 shield scenario. But the stand attacks plus the payback definitely do add up. I'd just play out the 0s here. Honestly, like, I didn't experiment too much with it to see what would be better if I was to like shield that payback, keep my Empoleon healthy, go for another Hydro there, and you know, mess around with maybe some swaps or double shielding or something like that. I didn't really mess around with that too much. I just always played out the 0, which is nice because you got switch advantage, or you gave my back shield an energy advantage, or shield advantage and energy advantage, of which Shadow Kingdra absolutely loves. But I'm gonna load up to 100 energy, take out the Corviknight, and now I'm guaranteed gonna get this energy back, that last shield back with whatever they come in with, because of just how hard Shadow Kingdra hits. We get the Swift bait, and we make it to the Outrage before the Dragonair farms us down. Absolutely crazy stuff there from the Kingdra, putting in so much work. They have the Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back, and they do end up conceding. GG's. This battle, Empoleon into Dunsparce. Not a great lead for us, and it's kind of a little bit like a core breaker as well. So we're going to stay in, fire off the Hydro Cannon after 7 iterations for fast move for good timing. And then we're going to throw one more and catch the drill run onto our Kingdra. I didn't want to catch onto Altaria because while it would have been nice to catch a double resisted move there, I was scared that it would have even a harder counter in the back, which fortunately they have an Ice Fang Hippowdon. So being able to bait that out is amazing, that our Altaria doesn't have to see it. So I'm just going to load up energy, fire off this Hydro Cannon before they reach Central Scorching Sands or Earth Power. They end up shielding it, and that's fantastic because I outpaced to another move here. They just let it go. They don't want to go down 2 shields. And if they come back in the Dunsparce, then with our shield advantage and them down energy, we're just going to be doing really well here. But they try and catch a move. They don't end up catching a move. Instead, I end up catching a move. This is the time to catch that double resisted drill run. And we're just in a good spot here because this is a Rock Slide. Got buffed a little bit, but it's not going to do enough damage to hurt us. The Golisopod can never farm us down. And then with all his energy stored on both of our Mons, my opponent does end up conceding. GG's. Next battle, Feraligatr Lead. Little bit of an interesting one here. I do just stay in and play out the zeros, because Empoleon does win CMP over Feraligatr, and 2 Drill Pecks are enough to KO, while the Hydro Cannon plus the Shadow Claws aren't. So it's an advantageous for a matchup for the Empoleon here. Whereas you'll see that Drill Peck does land and the second one will KO. Nice thing about the non-Shadow Gator when you're facing it is they can't Shadow Claw you down there. They will have to throw another Hydro, otherwise you'll reach a 3rd Drill Peck. So that's a little bit of a tidbit of information to keep in mind, where if your opponent stays in, tries to go for that farm down, that's perfectly fine. You can stay in and not worry about it. As long as you have like an okay Empoleon, you'll be able to survive the ensuing Shadow Claws to reach a 3rd Drill Peck. And now if it's a Shadow Gator, unfortunately you won't be able to. So if you reach that 2nd Drill Peck and they shield that 2nd Drill Peck, just pivot into your Shadow Kingdra. You don't want to give the Shadow Gator that much energy to work with. Now we have an Altaria on to the Kanto. Marowak does take it out. In comes the Gator again. We reach another Sky Attack. This will most likely pull that final shield from them since they have all that energy. It does. And to add insult to injury, we're able to make the catch of the Hydro Cannon onto our own Empoleon. And from here, like, unless it's a fairy type, there's no way my opponent's going to win this matchup. It's a Talonflame, and yeah, the game's just over. 2 Shield Shadow Kingdra is really just going to be able to sweep through whatever my opponent has, especially being this Talonflame here. They do get a nice Incinerate down, but it is not going to matter, as I just showed everything coming from this Talonflame. And again, since the Gator is non-Shadow, even if they're to fire off an Ice Beam at my Kingdra, it will not one-shot it. But it does not matter since we get to the Swift anyways. Take out the Talonflame and then Dragon Breath down what's left of the Feraligatr. GG's. Getting into the final battle of the video, we do lead Empoleon into Whimsicott, a fantastic lead for us. See what my opponent wants to do. They pivot into a Seaking. Not a great answer to this Empoleon, but it does have access to Drill Run, which is a little threatening. So I'm going to pivot into my own Kingdra here after landing that Drill Peck. Now, Seaking is one of those Pokemon that benefited from the Peck buff this season. Peck's a Shadow Claw clone, which is very nice now. We do tank the first Icy Wind, land this Swift. My opponent does end up giving up a shield. Seems like they're really wanting to force switch, of which they have a Whimsicott onto an Empoleon. I do not blame them for wanting to flip switch, but we're not going to let that happen. We just match shields. Back in comes the Whimsicott, and we're just going to start firing off these Swifts. First Swift does land. Second Swift, don't quite get there. We end up dying with the move, but that's okay. They have Jellicent in the back, and the only way my opponent wins this game now is that they have an Ice Beam Jellicent, but let's be honest here, nobody's running Ice Beam Jellicent anymore. I mean, I guess unless you're a madman, but all the jellies are just on Surf and Shadow Ball. Looks like my opponent does go for that Shadow Ball, and with them going for that Shadow Ball, we can just seal up this match here, since we can go for that shield. Load up on energy. Watch them try and go for the catch. They do not get the catch. I get to come in with my Empoleon. Tank the C-Bomb. C-Bomb does do quite a bit of damage, but we just outpace to this Drill Peck here. Take him out or force the final shield. We just take him out, and now that is game. Especially since my opponent overfarms too much and lets me get to the Drill Peck. So we take the shield from them, and then we will be able to fire off this Sky Attack to take out the Jellicent as well. Surf does take us out, but they're not quite at the Shadow Ball yet, as we do get the Sky Attack through to take down the Jelly. GG's. My first impression on the new season is really just that it feels good and that I'm definitely enjoying it. Being able to have like all these different Pokemon with viability, and the meta not being so condensed like it was before is very nice, and just gives you a lot of options and room to play and work around with. Obviously, we'll see what the meta does end up trending towards, and then more common cores and whatnot coming from that. But right now, it does feel good, so just hoping it stays that way for the long term. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.